From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. Is Andre Johnson
Jr.
Do not forget the Junior is very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And once again, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here on this Christmas Eve in the city of New Orleans. I hope everyone has had a good holiday season as we get closer and closer to old St. Nick visiting us all tonight. Santa Claus dropping off all the presents to everyone out there. So anyway, Merry Christmas to all of you. This is our last pod before Christmas Day. It is Christmas Eve, and you know what we had to talk about? We had to talk about what we saw on the eve of Christmas Eve in Green Bay with your New Orleans Saints. I hate to get negative so close to a very happy holiday, but we're going to have to do that today. It is what it is, what the job calls for. But first things first, how are you feeling?
I'm doing good. You know, we got all the Christmas shopping out of the way. So
I got one more thing to pick up.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I got all. Now we're not a gift wrapping family.
Perfect.
That's too much work. Gift bags. Throw a little that gift tissue in there. Different size, different color bags, and we calling it a day. So I feel really good going into the holidays.
Well, you know, it was funny. Like, I'm with you. But you know who's really into gift wrapping is my 12-year-old. So, like, I let her wrap all the gifts that we can buy for people, for the gifts that aren't for her. All right, so let's get into it. We witnessed a massacre last night, a Monday night massacre with the Saints. Looked absolutely embarrassing effort against the Green Bay Packers. They're the first team in the league to get shut out this year, 34-0. Just an embarrassment, a total and utter humiliation. There was no inkling of a second of that game where you felt like the Saints were in it. And that's tough, man. That's tough because I think a loss like that, a performance like that, really forces you to really look hard, especially with the way the season has gone, at where you currently are as an organization. And that's just where we had to go with the big picture today.
Yeah, you know, there has never been an NFL season where there wasn't a shutout. And heading into last night, it was looking like we might have the first season in NFL history where there wasn't a shutout. But courtesy of the New Orleans Saints, that streak came to an end. The Saints losing to the Packers 34-0 on Lambeau Field. So as we look at the organization as a whole, whether it's, and we'll get to Spencer Rattler and the Rat Pack and his performance later in the show, but we've got to start with the guy at the forefront of the team, and that's interim head coach Darren Rizzi. You know, we talked about him potentially being able to turn a few heads in this Monday night game on primetime television with how his team performed against the Packers. His team wound up falling flat. So now, Sean, after that game, where does he stand, and as a whole, really, where does this organization stand?
I'm going to talk about him within the context of the entire organization because, I mean, look, we all understand the situation that they're in, but it is kind of fitting, right? I mean, if you really look back to last year when they really made a push to win the NFC South and get back into the postseason, the game that everyone points to that started the up, down slide was in Green Bay, week 3. This year, their effort in Green Bay may finally be the loss that forces the major overhaul this organization desperately needs. Interim coach Darren Rizzi has given his all. He has given his all. He has put his blood, sweat, and tears and passion and emotion to get the most out of this group. And he has made a difference. Just look at him. It has made it, especially the first 5 games. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I just don't think it's going to be enough. It's hard to put 5 games into one bucket and 1 game into another, but that's just how bad it looked on Monday night. I didn't think a loss. No one thought they were going to beat the Packers. We all predicted a loss. Absolutely no one predicted a win for the Saints. And I didn't think a loss is going to hurt his chances. But a national embarrassment has to. It has to. And in fact, I predicted a 31-10 loss where they played somewhat tight in the first half and Green Bay pulls away late. 34-0 where you never had a prayer, and there were a lot of questionable decisions that you made. That really drops you down. At least it should, in my opinion. And what this organization is going to be looking for as the right candidate for the next head coach. The team looked nothing nothing like the group he coached those first 5 games where he was here. No passion, no energy, no discipline, no motivation. Frankly, no talent. I mean, that's just what it is. I know that's harsh, but that's just what it is. They look so checked out from the game's first snap. They played like they knew. They found out the day before they had no shot at the playoffs, and it was just riding out the season with their bags packed, suitcases in their car. That's not supposed to be a Rizzy-led team. That's not supposed to be a Rizzy-led team. So let me just clearly say, because I've been purposely kind of fluid with this, but let me now officially say I am now officially on the Saints need to go outside. They need to go outside the organization, which was always going to be the likely outcome, despite Rizzy making it a legit competition before last night. Even with 2 games remaining, including one very winnable one next week against the Raiders, I still think they have to go outside the organization. The head coach conversation needs to turn outward. And frankly, the head coach conversation is the easy part of this conversation. It's the straightforward part of this conversation. The bigger and more complex one is the man above him in the GM chair. I went home last night listening to Bobby Hebert and the crew. They were touched on this. Read a bunch of stuff this morning. They touched on this. And from what I've been told, Mickey Loomis is very aware of our criticism of him. Was told he does not like it. Tough. I don't care.
Yeah.
This isn't personal. This is all about the bottom line. 4 years of straight non-playoff football in the midst of a disaster season while simultaneously being $60 million over the cap again. All points to one man. It all points to Mickey Loomis. If the last primetime disaster, from what we read and what we've been able to gather, the last primetime disaster against Denver was really the thing that got the engine moving to get rid of Dennis Allen, well, this latest primetime meltdown in Green Bay needs to do the same for Mickey Loomis. I don't think it's going to happen. Let me emphatically state that. I do not think it's going to happen. I do not think he resigns or they get elevated or gets moved into another position or gets fired. I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think that's how they operate. But to look at the current state of this franchise, where it's at right now, how far they have fallen from just the spotlight that they enjoyed for 15 years, and to think Loomis is untouchable would be an insult to everyone that supports this team. This franchise is in need of a total overhaul, not a few tweaks, not a few moves here and there, and we're back in the mix, and a total overhaul. They have to move forward with fresh ideas and a fresh approach. The only question is, who's the one calling the shots to get those fresh ideas and the fresh approaches? The guy calling is the guy that's had the same ideas for the last however many years, calling the shots to get fresh ones, or is it going to be a new voice doing it? Again, I don't think Loomis is going anywhere. Everything I've been told, I don't think he wants to leave. I think he's going to get the option to retire. I think he's going to come running back. But I do think there needs to be a higher shifting of accountability at Loomis's feet.
Yeah, we've been having the conversation over the last few weeks on, will Darren Rizzi potentially keep this job, or should the Saints look outwards? And I've kind of been on the bandwagon of I would like a nice, younger, offensive-minded voice here in the city. But Rizzi had a chance. He had 3 chances.
He did.
To make a strong statement to win this job, and he lost all 3. And then last night, there's no word you can use but embarrassing. They showed zero fight. They got out physical. You had Josh Jacobs throwing Tyrann Mathieu around. You had Demario Davis getting thrown around by the backup running back. Just they were getting ran over, ran through. It was bad. So when you look at Darren Rizzi as a whole, as the interim head coach, what would be your argument to keep him, really? Because you look down the line, I don't think he won a game that Dennis Allen couldn't have won. And you know how we felt about Dennis Allen and how the fan base felt about Dennis Allen. You look at their 2 wins under Rizzi. It was a game against the Falcons where you could argue they got outplayed. One of the better kickers in the league misses 3 field goals. But they did show up. They showed heart. They played well against the Falcons. But they showed heart and played well against the Falcons in Atlanta under Dennis Allen. They were a Paulson Adebo pass interference call away from beating the Falcons in Week 4. I think they could have won the Falcons game even with Dennis Allen at the helm. And then Cleveland, well, everybody could beat Cleveland for the most part. You know, they beat the Browns. The Browns are one of the worst teams in the league. But where Rizzy had a chance to make his argument to stay head coach of the New Orleans Saints in the Dome against L.A., against the Rams, a good team, a team that's going to be knocking on the door of the playoffs, and they couldn't close that game. And that was with Derek Carr. You look at the Washington Commanders. They couldn't close that game. And obviously that was with the backup quarterback starting in Spencer Rattler. But you, as Darren Rizzi, decided to start the game with Jake Haener. And we've talked extensively about Haener and Rattler, but at the end of the day, it was your decision as head coach to start Haener. You bench him a half in. Maybe if you start Rattler, who is clearly your guy, maybe some would argue that you win against the Commanders. I don't think so, but you know what? Regardless, you lose that game against the Commanders, another team that's going to be knocking on the door of the playoffs. Then you've got a Monday night game against the Packers. Nobody's expecting you to win that game, but if you show some level of fight, I think that could still turn a few heads league-wide.
Yeah, absolutely.
There wasn't any. I mean, I keep going back to what Richard Sherman said in the Thursday night game against the Broncos. These players are playing like they want to get Dennis Allen fired. Did the players on the field on Monday Night Football look like they wanted Darren Rizzi to keep that job?
Sure didn't look like it to me.
Exactly. So when you look at Rizzi, I think the conversation for him to remain the New Orleans Saints head coach on a full-time basis probably ended on Monday night against the Packers. We'll see maybe if another team in the league looks Rizzi's way, where his future lies, you know, in certain positions. But yesterday definitely wasn't a good look.
But don't you think that's the easy part? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
the easy decision. I mean, to me, the difficult decisions going forward is, okay, who do you select as your head coach, and who do you select to select the head coach, and how are you really going to address the deeper organizational issues that have to be ironed out, and who do you hold accountable for those issues that have just kind of slowly drifted into this 5-10 just nastiness that you see right now. And to me, I don't know who else you can possibly look at.
The guy at the top.
Without at least having an acknowledgement that Loomis shares a lot of the responsibility here with where this organization currently stands, because it's so much bigger than, come on, Darren Rizzi. He's doing the best he can. This is not a talented roster. So, I mean, where do you stand in terms of front office-wise?
Obviously, I'm very similar to you. I don't think they make a move with Loomis. I would love to see them make a move with Loomis, because at the end of the day, I think this team has gone as far as it can under the mentality that he brought.
The Mickey mentality. That's a good way to put it.
He opened a championship window for this team. They won a championship. They had a lot of years where they were at or near the top of the NFL. But ever since then, they haven't been able to find the answer at quarterback post Drew Brees. You've given a lot of big money contracts to aging players. And partially because of that, you find yourself having to clear $60, $70, $80, $90 million just to start the offseason.
Yeah.
You've made several draft picks that haven't panned out into being what you expected them to be. And I'm talking first and second round draft picks.
Yeah.
I'm not talking the later round guys. So, and you look at this team this year, part of the reason why they couldn't deal with all of these injuries is because this was a roster that day one, we were talking about it, it had next to zero depth all across the roster, especially on offense. So, I mean, when you look at all of those issues that have really plagued the Saints all year, that's not on Rizzi. To an extent, that's not even on Dennis Allen. That's on the guy that hired them. That's on the guy that we assume will hire the next head coach. That's on Mickey Loomis. So you would hope that, assuming they bring a new head coach in, that head coach has a bit of a voice to build the team in his image, because the Mickey mentality has not been working.
And then there was a point in time it was.
It was.
It just happens. Like,
I
don't understand why we feel like this is just, there's just an era or an air of, well, this job belongs to him forever. Like, I don't understand that. We're all, I mean, we're all working under contracts. We're all performance based. It happens. I mean, you've had a lifetime as a GM of an NFL team. I mean, look, that's just the bottom line. This is not personal for anyone. This is a franchise in decline. speaking of that franchise, they started a rookie last night. His name was Spencer Rattler. Rattler has been the source of so much conversation around the city, a lot of conversation on this pod, and a lot of responses to those conversations from all of you on this pod, about our conversations with Spencer Rattler. So that's probably where we have to go next.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler completing 50% of his passes yesterday, didn't score any points, threw an interception, he fumbled the football. Despite that, he played all 4 quarters, and Darren Rizzi said today Spencer Rattler is expected to take all the reps with the ones heading into this week, and if Derek Carr can't go, the team will move forward with Spencer Rattler at quarterback. What do you make of that?
Okay, well, I got a lot to say here,
Yeah,
because I mean, you ain't gonna come at us like that and not and then
Don't throw stones and hide your hands.
Not have us respond with strongly. First off, wasn't surprised they didn't go back to Haener middle of the game because optics would have looked terrible. But again, Spencer is their guy. I think the organization has moved on from Haener. I think it wouldn't shock me if Haener's gone next year, depending on who's here as head coach. But let's get into the discussion about Spencer Rattler because it has to be had. It has to be had. I'm going to just send this out to the Rat Pack, Spencer Rattler fan club, all of you that have harassed us and tweeted at us and spoke to us about
my mentions last night.
Your love of passion for Spencer Rattler. I don't care. I don't care. We're going to treat it like we're supposed to be treated. Y'all, Rat Pack, are starting to make the Jameis Stan Club look normal. At least Jameis has a body of work. At least Jameis was a former number 1 overall pick. At least Jameis had some skins on the wall. I need y'all, the Rat Pack, put the bottle down, grab a coffee, wipe your eyes, and look clearly at this situation.
No eggnog for the holidays?
I mean, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Do they realize how ridiculous you sound? And it isn't just commenters on YouTube. There's some people covering the team on a regular basis that are in this mode of future franchise QB Spencer Rattler. How did we get here? How did we lose our way? How did you lose your way? We have treated Spencer Rattler fairly. We have kept the proper perspective and the proper context. You have not. The Rat Pack has gone delusional. We have treated Spencer in the context of a rookie 5th-round pick developing into what likely is going to be a backup quarterback or maybe a spot starter down the road at some point in his career. That is where the Rattler discussion needs to be. That's where it should be. That's where it's going to always be on this pod. The problem is you, not us, and certainly not Spencer Rattler. Do you realize how unfair it is to Spencer Rattler to have the expectations of a 5th-round rookie QB making his fifth start to be the future franchise quarterback? No, because you have somehow decided that he should be in the discussion for not just being the backup to Derek Carr. No, they have decided, the Rat Pack has decided, and let us know repeatedly that Rattler is the future of the franchise, and he's going to prove it over the final stretch of the season. This was going into the Monday
Some
night
say
game.
He's already proved it.
Utter delusion. Rattler has started 4 games. He has completed 56% of his passes in those games with 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And if you watched the game last night, you saw that probably could have been 2 or 3 more. And they have, most importantly, they have lost all 4 of those games. And they have lost, and he has not played well in those 4 games. It's not like he has played outstanding, but they happen to lose on the last-second field goal. No, they have lost badly in those games he has started. 4 losses by an average margin of, wait for it, 24 points. 4 starts, average margin of defeat, 24 points. Do you understand how hard it is to lose 4 games by 3 scores in the NFL? It is not designed to be that way. Help me understand where we got lost. Help me understand why you have moved into this lane. At no point during his time on the football field, even last week in relief, nice little rally at the end, have I ever looked at Rattler and thought, you know what? That's the guy. Give him the keys to the franchise. Maybe someday he will get there. But a rookie 5th-round pick needs to be treated as a rookie 5th-round pick, even with injuries, because guess what? Injuries are the reason he got on the field. So we can't always play injuries. Yes, of course he was banged up. They were banged up at wide receiver. Yes, of course he didn't have all his weapons. But one of the weapons that was missing was a quarterback. That's why he's playing to begin with. You might say, well, you haven't gone this hard at Jake Haener. I said, well, to that, I say, Haener fans don't harass us the way the Rattler clan, the Rat Pack seems to come after us at a week in and week out when we don't anoint Rattler yet. Rattler needs time to develop. Rattler needs some time to go in and develop and be the guy at some point, maybe down the road. It is not now, and I don't know if it's ever going to be anything when it comes to Rattler being the future franchise quarterback. I can promise you, if the Saints are thinking franchise quarterback with Spencer Rattler right now, they're in a much worse shape than I thought. Rattler is right where he's supposed to be. Backup quarterback, developing. Nothing more, nothing less. And even if he starts the final 2 games of the season, which is certainly possible, nothing is going to change that this season. There is nothing he can do in the next 2 games that's going to make us say, even if he goes for 300 yards against the Raiders, you know what? He's the guy. No, it's not going to happen. Not right now. So chill out, Rat Pack. Understand what Spencer Rattler is. He seems to understand where he's at fine. The fan base does not. Or the Spencer Rattler fan base does not. So that's my rant. I didn't think he played terrible last night, but I thought he was very streaky, and I thought, again, not good enough. Just simply not good enough.
I didn't think he was good last night, and we're going to get the excuses out the way first. I know how this goes. There was no Alvin Kamara. There was no Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed. Eric McCoy got hurt. No Taysom Hill. He didn't even have Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
MVS.
He was out there with Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin, Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Kendre Miller. He was not supposed to win this game. Mostly nobody expected Rattler to come out and win this game. I'm not judging him for how he looked overall. I'm not judging him for not winning. I'm not judging him for some of the drops and some of the lack of separation. I'm judging him on the throws that he did make, to where even if he could have had Marvin Harrison and Calvin Johnson out there. The interception he threw, that was a bad decision.
Horrible. Yeah.
That was a bad throw. He could have had a Hall of Fame offensive line. That interception is not a throw that you can make, especially when you've got somebody in the flat. That's on Rattler. That's not you. I don't want to hear, oh, no Olave, no Shaheed. That has nothing to do with that. That's a decision that the quarterback should not have made. The fumble that he had, another turnover, that's not on the lack of talent.
No.
He could have, Randy Moss out there. You can't hold on to that ball and put it on the turf, or it's natural grass, put it on the grass like he did against Green Bay. I believe that was in the second quarter. Also in the second quarter, one of the few times they crossed the 50-yard line and were in field goal range and were threatening to put points on the board, Spencer Rattler takes a sack that brings them out of field goal range. That's on Rattler. There are certain plays, sure, the easy thing is to say, oh, well, who's he throwing to? Oh, who's coaching him? Look at the offensive line. It's easy to make excuses, but when you look at some of the throws he made where he's missing high, he's not throwing the shack, where he's throwing it behind people. And obviously there were some ups, but there were more downs. For every good play he had, you could probably point out 2 bad plays. And the ones that I mentioned, the sack, the interception, the fumble, that's on him. That's not on a lack of talent. And that's okay because, like you mentioned, he's a rookie. Drafted in the 5th round, not to be the savior of New Orleans, not to be the next Drew Brees, not to be the next Patrick Mahomes. He was drafted to be a backup who might learn and might step up and play a relevant role in this organization or maybe in another organization one day. That day will not land in 2024, probably won't land in 25 or 26, because at the end of the day, I'm going to say what I've been saying for months. The future face of this franchise is not in the locker room on Airline Drive. He's probably in a classroom somewhere in college. Right now, the kids are on college break. He's probably at home with his parents. Spencer Rattler is not the future. I don't think we're being unfair to Spencer Rattler, but we can point out, it is okay to point out, yes, he's dealing with a lot, but despite that, he did not play well.
Yeah, no doubt. But I don't want to hear fair. I don't.
Exactly.
How many? How many?
He would have got benched yesterday.
How many rookie 5th round picks get an opportunity to start 5 games in a season? It just doesn't happen that much. As far as I know, he's the only one, and there may be 1 or 2 at some point in the season that I hadn't thought of. At least 5th round and beyond, day 3 picks getting a chance to start 5 games in a season. He's getting. This is a fantastic opportunity for him. It ain't what's not fair is Hainer kind of beat him out, and then he jumped Hainer. So, and he got pulled in half. So I don't want to hear anything about fair and difficult circumstances, because while it wasn't the ideal circumstance, the lack of ideal circumstance got him on the football field. So we're talking about a situation where you need to let this kid breathe. And I hate using the word kid. Let this young man breathe. Let him develop. Last night would be fine. I would have no problem with his effort last night if I didn't have to answer maybe they need to see what this team has, and maybe they can roll with him next year as starting quarterback. That was never on the table. Never should have been on the table. I mean, what have y'all been watching the last 4 starts? And again, I will point to this. Well, we got a minute left. 5 starts with quarterbacks not named Derek Carr. 0-5. All 5 times, starter wasn't close to being ready to go. Offensive staff, what are you doing? What are you doing to get these guys ready? Tyson Bagent got ready last year. Tommy DeVito got ready enough to win games last year. Cooper Rush is killing the Bucs on Sunday Night Football. Backup quarterbacks matter. Got to be ready if you're an offensive staff.
Yep. Well, the Saints may or may not have to deal with one this week. Darren Rizzi saying that he's hopeful that Derek Carr can play, and if he can, then he will get his revenge game against the Raiders, a team that the Saints should be able to beat, honestly, with or without Carr, because they're a team that's not looking towards the playoffs. They're looking towards the NFL draft.
Well, it'll be fun. All right. Merry Christmas to all of you. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.